Hey friends, it's me, your girl, Kristen Denise, also known as KD, here with day 11, yes, of Black History Month. Sorry, brains all over the place. Now, this one is going to be information heavy, so I'm going to jump right in. Today, I'm not actually talking about a person. I'm talking about a period in history that's really significant to Black Americans and Black history and culture, but it's not an era many of us learn about or learn a lot about. I was fortunate in my K-12 education to learn about it and to be able to pick up a little bit more as I got older. But today, I'm going to talk about the period of Reconstruction. A lot of people won't even have any clue what I'm talking about, and that makes me mad because we should absolutely know this. It was a significant moment in American history, especially the things that ended it. So, are you ready? Take your notes. Let's dive right in. Reconstruction was a period that took place from the end of the Civil War in 1865 to about 1877. Officially, you still had a little bit in there, but for the most part, it's that 12-year period. And it's about rebuilding the nation as a whole after post-Civil War and the struggle for Black freedom. So it was the period again following the Civil War, which took place from 1861 to 1865, when the United States grappled with how to reintegrate the southern states that had seceded from the Union and how to address the status of about 4 million newly freed African Americans. Spanning from 1865 to 1877, Reconstruction was marked by both unprecedented progress for Black Americans, but also violent backlash from white supremacy. This era began with a lot of hope and possibility. The abolition of slavery through the 13th Amendment, which happened in 1865, was followed by new rights and opportunities for Black people, including citizenship with the 14th Amendment in 1868, and voting rights for Black men with the 15th Amendment in 1870. For the first time in American history, Black men held political office during Reconstruction, established businesses, and gained access to education. However, this progress was met with fierce resistance from white Southerners determined to maintain racial hierarchies, leading to the rise of white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan and the eventual implementation of Jim Crow laws after Reconstruction ended. So Reconstruction was a critical turning point in American history, laying the groundwork for both the civil rights movement of the 20th century and the ongoing struggles for racial justice today. It was also super significant because you have to think of all the things they said to justify slavery. Black people are unintelligent, they're lazy, they're this, that, and the other. All things we know that are not true, but how they justified slavery. So to be immediately post-enslavement and to see this rise of Black education, this rise of Black political power, Black business ownership is literally a slap in the face to everything they said. So it's like everything you said the whole time was a lie. You knew it was a lie. And now you're mad at the progress immediately being made. So let's jump right in. There were some key accomplishments and events that took place during Reconstruction. So first, you had quite a few constitutional amendments that expanded the rights for Black Americans. But pay attention to these because specifically Black men got a few more things out of the deal because of just the sexism that we deal with, which is why we've talked a lot about intersectionality. So Reconstruction saw the passage of 3 key constitutional amendments aimed at securing civil rights for formerly enslaved people. You had the 13th Amendment, which officially abolished slavery in the United States, except as punishment for a crime. Check out 13th by Ava DuVernay. You had the 14th Amendment in 1868, which granted citizenship to anyone born or naturalized in the U.S., including formerly enslaved people, and promised equal protection under the law, which is why it's a big deal for the current administration to be challenging birthright citizenship. That is definitely a slap in the face to the 14th Amendment. And then you had the 15th Amendment in 1870, which prohibited the federal and state governments from denying the right to vote based on race, color, or a previous condition of servitude, though it did not extend voting rights to women, because trifling. These amendments were monumental victories for Black Americans at the time, setting legal precedents that would be invoked during later civil rights struggles. So you saw a rise in Black political power because during Reconstruction, Black men held political office for the first time in U.S. history. You had Hiram Revels, who became the first Black U.S. senator, guess what, in what state? In 1870 in the state of what? Mississippi, right? You had Blanche K. Bruce follow as the second Black U.S. senator in 1875. You had over 2,000 Black men who held public office at the local, state, and national levels, influencing legislation and advocating for civil rights, education, and economic opportunities for Black communities. This period of political power was truly unprecedented and demonstrated the potential for a more inclusive democracy. You had the establishment of public education for Black Americans, which actually impacted the establishment of public education for all Americans. So one of the most significant achievements of Reconstruction was the creation of public schools for Black children. You had the Freedmen's Bureau, which ran from 1865 to 1872, which was a federal agency established to help formerly enslaved people transition to freedom, providing food, housing, legal aid, and education. The Bureau helped establish thousands of schools for Black Americans across the South. You also had HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, be established more widely during this period of time. So you got institutions like Howard University in 1867 and Fisk University in 1866, which were founded during Reconstruction, providing higher education opportunities for Black students for the first time. Now, the first HBCU, which is Cheney University, was established long before Reconstruction, but we're highlighting those that were founded during Reconstruction. That's all. And the proliferation of Black institutions during that time. Education became a powerful tool for Black empowerment and laid foundations for future generations of Black leaders. Then you have Black economic progress. So you had land ownership and labor rights that really kind of took precedent during this time. Many freed people saw economic independence through land ownership and labor rights. You had the 40 acres and a mule that people were promised in 1865 when General William T. Sherman's Special Field Order Number 15 promised land redistribution to formerly enslaved families. While this promise was quickly revoked by the president, Andrew Johnson, it symbolized the desire for economic autonomy among freed people. And then you have sharecropping and tenant farming. That while it showed that while some Black families were able to manage acquiring land, many were forced into exploitative labor arrangements like sharecropping, which kept them economically dependent on white landowners and truly was akin to slavery. But despite these obstacles, Black communities still built businesses, farms, and institutions, whole towns, that foster economic resilience. Then you had the violent backlash and the rise of white supremacy. So the progress of Reconstruction was met with violent resistance from white Southerners who sought to restore white supremacy. You had the establishment of the KKK, which was founded in 1865. And they used terrorism, lynching, and intimidation to suppress Black political participation and to maintain racial hierarchies. You had the Black Codes, which was the precursor to Jim Crow. So Southern states enacted restrictive laws designed to control Black labor and movement, essentially attempting to recreate the conditions of slavery. Then you had a lot of massacres and riots that took place. Events like the Colfax Massacre in 1873 in Louisiana and the Hamburg Massacre in 1876 in South Carolina saw dozens of Black people killed in attempts to suppress Black political power. And then finally, you had the end of Reconstruction based on the Compromise of 1877. So Reconstruction officially ended with the Compromise of 1877, a political deal that resolved the disputed 1876 presidential election. In exchange for conceding the presidency to Rutherford B. Hayes, Republicans at the time agreed to withdraw federal troops from the South, effectively ending Reconstruction. Without federal protection, white supremacist groups regained control, and Jim Crow laws enforcing racial segregation were established across the South. The gains made by Black Americans were systematically dismantled, ushering in nearly a century of legalized racial discrimination. But there's still some things we can absolutely learn from Reconstruction that we can still apply today. One, we have to remember that while progress is possible, it requires vigilance. Reconstruction showed that rapid progress toward racial equality is possible when there is political will and community mobilization, but it also demonstrated how easily those gains can be rolled back in the face of resistance. We're seeing that right now. So, rights and freedoms are not guaranteed. They have to be actively defended. And the struggle for justice requires constant vigilance and continued activism to protect hard-won gains. So we need to stay engaged in local and national politics. We can't just stick our head in a hole right now. Advocate for anti-racist policies and be prepared to challenge attempts to roll back civil rights. So everybody, get active. Representation absolutely matters, but it's only the beginning. Reconstruction marked the first time Black Americans held significant political power, showing the importance of representation in shaping laws and policies. But it's not enough on its own. True justice requires systematic change that addresses economic inequality, education, and legal protections. So we have to support and vote for diverse candidates who advocate for racial justice and systemic reform in order to maintain and really take advantage of what we get from the representation. Again, education is a tool for liberation. The establishment of public schools and HBCUs during Reconstruction highlighted the transformative power of education in uplifting marginalized communities. So we need to continue to advocate for access to quality education because it is essential to empowerment and equality. So we need to have equitable funding in schools, support education initiatives in marginalized communities, and invest in lifelong learning for ourselves and others. And finally, we have to remember that the fight for white supremacy is ongoing. Listen, we cannot let up. Feet on the gas, riding on out. All right? So that is the period of Reconstruction. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, like, comment, share. And remember, do what you need to do to be more than okay because you deserve to be more than okay. And absolutely do what you need to do to live a life you love because you deserve to live a life you love. I love you. Have a good one.